Welcome to the first Conquest Chronicles podcast. My name is Tommy Morris. I'm happy to be joined by Julian, Nick, and Trawan. We've got 5 topics we've got to get to you. We've got to talk about the USC football players at the Combine, a little bit of Pat Haden, new AD, what do we want to see there. Stuart Cravens lost a bet. We'll talk about that in a second. And USC basketball. It's been good so far this year, but a little bit of a skid lately, so we're going to get to that. But first, we'll start with you, Julian, and our first topic, which is Pat Haden, no longer be the athletic director, so who do you want to see replacing him?
Pete Carroll.
Can you elaborate on that?
Honestly, I don't really have a special choice that is at the top of my list. I think that Steve Lopes is probably going to get heavy consideration. For my notes, I wrote down someone that is probably younger. You know, this is a stressful job, and, you know, not to make fun of it, but, you know, Pat Haden, we saw the health downfalls that he got, I think, from this. Obviously, with football, I want them to move completely away from the Pete Carroll era, whoever is the AD. Obviously, we have Clay Helton, and we'll see what the new AD works with Clay Helton, what his leash is. And then what I really liked what Pat Haden did and what I want for the new AD is to focus on all the sports. USC has a world-renowned track team, a basketball team on the come up. Baseball has been really good. Volleyball's top of the nation too. So really incorporate to get fans to focus not only on football but on all of the sports.
All right, so go to Nick Dempsey now. Julian wants to make sure the AD focuses on all the sports, but realistically, not to hate you, Julian, I feel like all people care about is football. Nick, what do you think?
It's definitely the most important. Haden did a great job on all the non-football stuff. Non-revenue sports to fundraising and everything in between, he did a great job, but he couldn't get right at football, and I think that's what he lost a lot of people. I would hope they at least look outside of the USC family. I think they will. I think there's one athletic director in the last 90 years who wasn't a USC guy when he was hired. But I think Steve Lopes is probably at least he's got to be the front runner, I would imagine. In fact, I'd be willing to bet if there isn't a successor on the job by the time Haden leaves, Lopes will probably be picked as the interim just to tide over at the very least. But I think they could also look at Mark Jackson. He's the Villanova athletic director, but he actually worked for quite some time in the USC athletic department. So he's a known entity. But he's only been on the Villanova job for a year, so I don't know. But I would like him to see a broad national search, just really kind of uncover everyone. Do it better than the last 2 football coaches searches to be, that appeared to be like a handful of phone calls. Let's get the best USC guy we can hire. So that's what I'm hoping for. But it really feels like they're going to go with Lopes unless someone presents a pretty compelling case. They would be better.
All right, so we've got 2 for Lopes. Schober, what do you think?
I don't know. I think someone who loves the school, who loves the athletic program, not necessarily connected to it, but maybe has that passion for it. And then I agree with Julian, someone who can handle the pressure. Hayden did not, he had very poor health. It's a stressful job. It's a high-profile job. And, having somebody who's maybe been through the ringer and can handle that kind of attention and that kind of pressure would be really good for the school. Now, had you asked me this before Pat Haden was hired, I might have attributed those things to him. So, tough to say. Have to see once somebody gets in and gets through the ringer.
All right, so moving on, Trawan, what do you think? Final thoughts.
As we've seen, like everybody has said, you need somebody that can persevere, somebody that can go through all sports, take accountability, be able to communicate, and overall have a great tradition with USC. Not just USC football, but just USC as a university, whether it's off the field or on the field or within the community. And after doing some looking and a couple Twitter followers, I like Anthony Munoz, surprisingly. He has a great tradition with the school. He's an all-pro USC, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he does great community work in Cincinnati with the youth. So you're looking at somebody that, you know, he might be up there in age, but he's still very active. He's still giving back to the community. He's still a diehard USC guy. He's a stand-up guy, and I think what will be the biggest thing USC needs as an AD, somebody that's going to put their foot down. As we should know, the AD is not a guy that needs to be, you know, a popularity contest or someone that every single person loves. It's somebody that's going to make the right decision at the right time, and no matter what the judgment is or what type of criticism he takes, at the end of the day, making sure that's the best for the program or the programs. So I think Anthony Munoz can be one of those guys if they ever did look that far out and, you know, actually did a national search within their SC alumni.
Yeah, and so if Twitter says it, it must be true. So if Twitter's asking for Anthony Munoz, why wouldn't you? I mean, everything on Twitter is factual. But I actually do like the call. I was saying that in jest, but I do actually like Anthony Munoz call. Moving on, Haden is gone. There are some Trojans who are gone from the football team now. They're going off to the NFL. They're at the Combine. We'll start with you, Nick D. Who of the Trojans at the Combine right now has the most at stake?
I think you got to look right at the top. You got to look at Cravens. I think he's projected to be a first-round pick, late first round, I believe. But he kind of has that problem where he might not know what to do. Is he powerful enough to play linebacker in the NFL? Is he and if they can't immediately take him and have a plan for him, they might hold off on drafting him in the first round. So he could really come out in this combine and show he's got strength to be a first round pick, even if you're not exactly sure what you want to do with him. So absolutely, he has certainly a lot to lose and quite a bit to gain. The other guy is Newton, just because there's not really a fullback spot in the NFL anymore. So he could very well slip right off the draft board and come out and show he has the tools to play special teams or find some other role in the NFL. So I think those are the two guys sort of on opposite ends of the draft board. We really have a lot to go, a lot to say.
All right, moving on to the other Nick. Nick asks, what do you think?
I think Cody Kessler really has to have a good combine. He's been efficient his whole career. I think he's got his name in the record books in a couple spots, but he just did not have a good senior year. I don't know how much you can fault him going through the amount of trials and tribulations that he had to handle. Multiple head coaches, multiple coordinators. You know, the guy went through the ringer. And that shows his character. I think the intangibles, are not in question. But to really put all the scouts at ease and to make himself really worth a draft pick, I think he has to have a stellar combine.
Trowan, what do you think?
After looking into all 7 guys, I honestly am going to go with Antoine Woods. I know it sounds like a big surprise, but you're looking at somebody that is a highly touted lineman when he's healthy. We have been able to see that when he's actually healthy and he's actually feeling it, he can actually make plays and be very disruptive. Looking at him in the NFL Players Association practices, he was the main headline, and it sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, his explosiveness, his speed, his strength getting off of the ball, and just watching him on ESPN, it was just looking at a whole different guy. Sort of just like, man, if we just had that at SC on a consistent basis, it could have been a lot more trouble in the trenches for a lot of our offensive linemen. So I think Antoine Woods, especially with his stock going up and a lot of people now starting to take notice of him and seeing what he can actually do when he's fully healthy, rested, and playing, at his top and at his best in football. He's fast, he's quick, he has good hands. Those are a lot of the things that scouts are going to look at, and the Combine is going to be the best place to showcase all those talents.
All right, so a little bit of diversity in our choices so far. Julian, do you have a new one for us, or are you going to stick with one of the ones we've heard?
I'm going to stick with one of them that was already said, and Cody Kessler. Quarterbacks, everyone goes in the Combine and they get torn apart. People are going to look at Kessler's tape and see the second half of the season of his senior year, when he got pressured, he looked absolutely terrible. So I'm interested to see how Kessler does on the 40-yard dash. It's probably going to be pretty ugly, but as we know in the past, there was this guy from Michigan about 13 years ago that ran a 40-yard dash ugly, and I think he has a couple Super Bowl rings now. I'm interested to see how Kessler does in the drills, especially when he has to run and throw. His mobility has never been good, so I think it's going to be a big stage for Cody Kessler. And, after you look at like the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks, it's basically anyone's game because some quarterbacks had some great stats and some great games, and then they struggled. So Kessler, this is a big weekend for him.
All right, so a couple guys concerned about the quarterback here at USC. Kind of a weak quarterback class, if you ask me, so you might be able to jump up there if he does something good, so I kind of agree with that. Moving on to the guys who are still at USC, Colin Cowherd is a big USC fan, I think. He always talks about USC on his show. Says the Trojans will go 8-4. Nick S., we'll start with you. Is this an accurate statement, and should we even care about it?
As a rule, I think I tend to ignore anything Colin Cowherd says. I mean, he also, in that same video, I think he proclaimed Josh Rosen the best player in college football, or getting ready to be. That said, I'm not sure I can argue too much. The schedule is wretched. It's going to be a pressure cooker all year long. And I don't know if 8-4 is that far off the mark. New quarterback, new coordinators, Helton's first year with the reins fully in hand. 8-4 might not be that much of a stretch.
Jerome, what do you think? 8-4, maybe even worse, better? What do you think?
I somewhat agree with him. As weird as it sounds. And I will say the main reason why I do disagree with who he said that they will lose to or that they will flat out lose to. First off, I don't think they're going to lose to UCLA. Yes, Ronson is a great quarterback, and he's coming up, but I don't think that he has enough there at UCLA to get them over SC. Now, Nick did make a very great point regarding the new coordinators, the new coaches, a new quarterback, somewhat a new system, but if anything we're not thinking about is Coach Pendergrass's bend but don't break defense, especially against teams like Alabama, Notre Dame, couple teams in the Pac-12 or so. With that type of defense of, we can let them get all the yards, but let's just not hold them to score. SC hasn't really been good in those types of situations. Once a good drive is going, it's been pretty hard for SC to just come up with a stop. 8-4, I think it's one of those predictions to where everybody's sort of tired of seeing USC being predicted with such a great record, despite their schedule. So I think 8-4 was him playing it safe. I will have to say though that they'll be 9-3 and nationally ranked.
Not bad, and I fall victim to that because I brag about them going to have an undefeated season every year, and they inevitably never do. But Julian, are you an optimist, or what do you think about this 8-4 prediction?
Oh man, the days of USC having an easy September are over. You look at Alabama, and then a Utah State team that's been to 5 straight bowls, then at Stanford and at Utah. And I was just looking today at the road schedule. They go to at Utah, at Stanford, at Arizona, at Washington, and at UCLA. So the road games is going to be a killer. Washington, everyone's saying Washington's going to be really good this year. I don't know about Arizona, but we've seen USC has struggled a lot in Tucson recently. I can't really say what they're going to be, especially now I want to see what's going to happen in spring practice and in fall camp. I think Clancy coming back is going to be huge, Baxter coming back, but considering that in the past couple of years have said they're going to be 11-2, 12-1, I'll say right now that 8-4 sounds good. Lower the expectations so that USC can beat them.
Yeah, Julian, I'll agree with you. In Tucson, guys, stay away from those pool parties, man. I know they're tempting, but it's a business trip, fellas. Business trip. Stay away from the pool parties. Too much fun there. Nick D, what do you think? Final thoughts?
I think, it's a safe prediction, but I don't think we have enough information from anybody to predict that. Yes, we're bringing in new coordinators and new quarterbacks and everything else at USC, but you also got to look at, who is UCLA going to have, and what are they going to look like by the end of next season? Look at their draft board. How many guys are they losing the NFL draft this year? Quite a lot of talent they're losing. And then you look at Notre Dame. Are we going to get the Notre Dame that last year seemed to win no matter which third-string quarterback, backup, tight end? They lost half their offense. It's still kept winning. But the year before, they didn't have nearly as many injuries, and they were just dreadful the second half of the year. So we don't know which Notre Dame we're going to get. We don't know who we're going to get at UCLA. I think it's a safe pick to say Alabama's going to beat USC. I don't think that's that much of a stretch right now, anyway, from what we've seen. So I don't think we have enough information to definitively say, yes, UCLA is going to beat USC and Notre Dame's going to beat them the following week. I think it's a good, safe pick. Honestly, though, this happens so much in college football. Frequently, you'll see a team beat somebody they probably shouldn't, that they're not good, but then lose a game they shouldn't. So you could see, maybe they'll beat UCLA and Notre Dame, but they'll randomly drop one to Arizona or Arizona State or something like that. They probably shouldn't. But I don't know. It's a tough schedule. 8-4 seems safe, but tough to say in February. I don't, it's good for ratings, but I don't know why people make these predictions in February about what's going to happen in November.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of not necessary, but hey, Trojan alumni, I'm going to fall victim to it every time. 14-0 national champions. You can book it right now. Go ahead and go to Vegas. So a guy who won't be able to help them next year is Stuart Cravens because he will be in the NFL. He made a pretty bad bet with Kevin Hogan. He has to now put a fathead of Kevin Hogan throwing some touchdown passes against the Trojans on his wall. Guys, starting with Teron, what is the last thing you want plastered on the side of your wall every night when you go to sleep? You got to look at it. It sucks. What do you think?
I don't know if you guys have seen the new State Farm commercials, but I'll have to say DeAndre Green in that wig. Man, it's one of the most disturbing commercials I've seen. Just nothing but just huge with tattoos and then a blonde wig. It looks like Dennis Rodman in a wedding dress. It's horrible. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. That's the biggest disappointment and the most disturbing I've seen.
Julian, what do you not want on your wall?
John David Booty, 13-9, Eric McNeil, the tip and the interception. That's all I have to say.
Nick D, what do you think?
Oh, man. That JDB just reminded me of another hilarious John David Booty moment. But I think I'm going to Jets fans know what's up. I think I'm going to stick with Charlie Weiss. Just imagine Charlie Weiss's Fathead, I mean that both ways, plastered up on your wall, waking up at like 3 in the morning to go to the bathroom, and boom, Charlie Weiss's mug is right in your face. I think that's I think that would be rough. That'd be rough to deal with. I wouldn't want to see that.
Nick S., what do you think?
I don't even like talking about it, but I gotta go with USC Texas at the Rose Bowl. I happened to be on the field during that game. I was working for a photo agency, crammed down there by the goal line, and like a bad, I can still see it, like a bad dream, just watching the Trojan defense just spread apart like the Red Sea, and watching Vince Young look me dead in the face and take off for the goal line. Just for a split second, I thought I might be able to live on as probably the greatest Trojan fan in history if I just like stuck my foot out and did what the Trojan defense could not do and bring him down. But yeah, elected not to. But yeah, to have to look at that on my wall, tragic state of affairs that would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't have liked that. Hey, the foot out might not have been bad. You might have been banned for life or arrested or whatever, but at least you'd be like the opposite of Bartman. You'd be like the opposite of Bartman. So I don't know what that would call, but the anti-Bartman would be pretty cool. So we've talked about football today, but there's a new team in town at USC. There's a basketball team now. Crazy. So Julian, we'll start with you. They just lost 3 of the last 4 after a really hot start to the season. Should we be worried about the basketball team as they head up north to go to the Bay Area?
They've lost 3 of their past 4. The Arizona State loss is really bad. The loss in Tucson, not as bad because no one really wins in Tucson. And they came back, that huge comeback against Colorado. And then Utah is probably the hottest team in the Pac-12 they lost to. So a cause of concern, not necessarily. This weekend they're up at Stanford on Thursday. Stanford's really bad this year in basketball. They're 10-5 at home this year, which is you hardly ever see. And then they play Cal, and Cal's won 5 straight. They're pretty hot. So not really a cause of concern. It's just Trojans need to finish this strong. Then they have their season finale at home with the Oregon schools. Pac-12 tournament, I've seen anywhere from the 7 to 10 seed for USC men's basketball, as long as they don't collapse, they're pretty much in. They're almost at 20 wins. They're one away, actually. So USC just played a brutal stretch in the past 2 weeks. So if they can come back and beat Stanford and possibly beat Cal, I think they'll be in good shape.
Nick D, what do you think about the basketball team right now?
I think that you're going to have this when you have a young but really talented team. As the season drags on, they start playing tougher and tougher competition. It's tough to learn how to finish and win games when the heat gets turned up. I will say they've got to get better on the road. They're great at the Galen Center, but on the road they have really struggled. I'm not concerned. I think the latest projections still have them as a 7 seed if the tournament were today, if the NCAA tournament were today. I would be greatly concerned if they went up to the farm and lost to Stanford. I think that would be a huge cause for concern. But I think they should at least split. But they are going to have to get better because it only gets tougher from here once they get into the Pac-12 tournament and then on into March Madness. There's really not a lot of easy outs left for them this season, so they're going to have to get better.
So Nick D sees some improvement. Nick S, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Young team, talented team, and the Pac-12 is a deep and a good conference. No one's expecting them to run the table and take the conference and go into the Pac-12 conference as a number 1 seed. I think they're defying expectations. 1 loss at home, that's an incredible run. They do definitely need to get better on the road, learn how to finish games. I think the Colorado game, the comeback win, showed a lot of heart and a lot of growth, in 1 season.
All right, Juwan, so far no one's really freaking out yet. Nobody's too excited. How do you feel about the basketball team right now?
I agree with everybody else. I mean, there's no need to freak out. Of course, they're going up to play Stanford, and they're playing Cal, who, they both have the same record. It would be great if they can go up there on the road, like everybody's been saying, and improve and win both games. Nobody's asking for it to be a blowout. Nobody's asking for it to be a statement game. I think if they win these next 2 games, it'll actually be a statement going into the last 2 against Oregon. I think they're at the crossroads where they can either finish this at 2-2, or they can go 3-1, or they can go 4-0, or they can just mess it all up and finish out on the weak side of the conference. And I think you're playing teams like Oregon and Cal in your last 4 games. It sounds scary on the schedule, but I think it's great, especially for a young team, because it's not only teaching them how to finish, but it's sort of forcing them how to finish. If you want to win, you have to finish at this point, especially against a tough Oregon team.
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. I mean, this season, to me, has been a victory. I thought the Edfeld Tower was a disaster, but they look pretty good. They're going to get to 20 wins, it looks like, which is, in the Pac-12, a big deal. They're going to get to the tournament, it looks like, which I haven't done in a little while. So congratulations to the basketball team. Good luck to all those guys in the Combine. We're all rooting for you here at USC. And good luck to the guys about to enter spring practice. We are counting on you to go undefeated national champions, just like every single USC fan is, right, guys? It's an assumption, right? Yeah? We all agree on that? All right, thank you guys for watching. We will see you all next week with more USC news.